Hello everyone, this is John here from 3dcoat Tutorials and welcome to my channel. So this tutorial I'll be actually using basically 3dcoat as well as Blender to create this actual object here. This object will be completely made in actual 3dcoat, and I'll be bringing it into Blender and adding basically a decal, which is this object that's actually added to this sphere here as an example of how this is done. So it's real easy to do and real easy to create. And hopefully this tutorial will help others learn how to make things like this real easily. All right, so thanks for joining me. Let's get going. So actually I'm using the version of 2025 version. And basically this is the object that was created in 3dcoat. As you can see here, I got a lot of details as well as a lot of polygons here basically that I've created from the actual voxel object. And I'm okay with how many there are here because, again, I am just taking this object and creating into a decal. So it's not really imperative to have less polys or less faces. It's more actually better to have a lot more detail. So your model will come out a lot smoother and nicer when actually converting into a decal. So that's important to understand as we go forward with this. Now, if I was going to actually use this just as a model, I probably would still go with the same detail and just bring it into Blender and kind of use like quad remesher or something like that to reduce it down, so something that's more, maintainable and easy to work with. But anyway, that's for another tutorial. So here we go. So I'm going to go ahead and start from scratch. So I'm going to go ahead and say File and say New. All right, so we're now in 3dcoat, and this is the startup screen. And we're actually going to start with going to voxel sculpting. So select this here. And you're going to start up with just the basic screen, and it will be within the sculpt mode. Okay, so a few things to do. First thing to do is we're going to create some objects. Now, we're going to make sure that we have the view on, and we have basically wireframe is fine. Axis would be good, so you can see where things are at. And we can zoom in on this stuff. We can use the Alt key to kind of move in and use the right key to kind of get closer. So we're going to start off with just a basic disk. So we're going to start off with that. And we're going to start right here in the primitives under object. Now you got different options here. And again, I'm going to select this here. Now I'm just going to start off with the basic shape that's here. Now one thing you'll notice over on the right side, you have this thing here where it shows what we're creating. Now at one times at this size, it's going to be way too small. And keep in mind that the bigger you make this or scale this, the bigger that you don't really need this. So if you scale this up and bring this up bigger, you won't need as much detail when you bring it in. So if I bring it way up, we can zoom out a little bit. And if we say, basically add here and apply, you'll see what we get, right? So this is actually not bad. It is a little bit pixelated, as you can see. Another thing you can do here to see what we got, you hit the space bar and kind of see, look at the resampling. So this is about 432,000, voxels. Now, personally, I like to stay within a couple million for my modeling purposes. So I would suggest trying to get to that level. So if I go to undo, I can just go back a few. Going back to the same size that I was before. Alt key, zoom in. And I'm going to start off with the 1 times, but again, now if I do like spacebar, or let's just say apply, you'll see that this is way blockier, right? It looks really, really blocky, and it's just not very clean. See, that's basically the difference of what we're doing here. So we know that, starting off in this beginning setup here is going to be way blocky. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. And what we can do here is just basically add in some more details. So I just click on this increase here, which is there. And you see it goes to 2 times, 4 times, 8 times, and 16 times. So for something like this, I would go with 16 times personally. You can go a little bit lower if you want, but for myself, this is what I use. Now I am going to use some different things here. I want to bring some things down. I want to bring this down basically. Actually, Control Z. I want to bring this down right here. So this, I want to keep this exactly at the front view here. So if you go to front here, you see how it's kind of like right on the 0 axis. We want to have the same setup for our decal. So keep that in mind. When you bring it into Decal Machine, we want this to be flat on that surface so it actually has a better action with what we need. It won't work right if you don't have that. So we could bring this down a little bit more. Kind of want it to about there. And another thing I'm going to be doing here is the top radius is the very top. The bottom is the bottom. I'm going to take this top here and just kind of bring it in a little bit. I want it to be kind of sharp a little bit, but not too sharp. I want to add a little bit of a fillet. So if I click on this, you see how it kind of makes it more rounded. That's kind of what we're looking for. And I'm kind of going to reduce it down, maybe just a little bit. I don't want a lot. I just want a little bit of that fillet. All right, so we've got 16 times. Let's go ahead and make sure it says add and apply. Once you click on it, it's going to come back and it will show you what you made. So what we can do is kind of zoom out a little bit and just kind of move this out of our way and see what we got here. So it looks pretty good in detail. I would also do the spacebar to see what we got. So if I hit resample again, it's only 391,872, which still is a little bit low for me. So I will go ahead and go back one more, and I'm about 60. I'm going to go with 32. So let's go with 32, and now try and apply. It takes a few seconds to modify this. So once it's done, it'll stop and it'll turn brown. Okay, so this looks way better detail-wise, and I think I like that. So what we can do now, because of we just created this, we go back and resample again, see what that is. Yeah, that's like 1.5. That's pretty good. I like that amount when I create something specifically like this. So I'm also going to go in here and hit smooth all. I might as well start off right away with this. I'm going to go with 10 just to kind of get it nice and smooth, and that takes a few seconds. The problem with having too many voxels, it does slow down your system a little bit more, but anyway, I'm just trying to smooth this out, and I think I'm good with that. Maybe one more time, smooth all. Just want to get the basics of this model to look really nice. So there we go. I did two of those now. So now what we can do is we can take this and kind of modify it a little bit more. Now your top and bottom is a little different. I'm going to go with basically 8 point, well, let's just go with 9 here. I'm going to make this like 9 as well. And this way it becomes more flat, or basically the same. And we're going to bring this into this space here. And one thing I do, I want this a little deeper in, so I'm going to make this a little bit small in the radius. So I'm going to scale this down. And what we're doing here is we're going to cut into this object so it actually has like 2 sections. One's inner, one's outer. And that's kind of what I did last time on my model when I created it. So I'm going to bring this up just a little bit. And again, I don't really need it very smooth and round in the bottom. It could be flat, which is fine. I don't need anything to do with the fillet on this one, but I might want to have it on the top. However, one thing to keep in mind is, when you do these fillets, it does add a lot more detail. And again, if you can afford it, go for it. But for me, I personally like to have a little bit roundness. So I'm going to make this a little bit more on the fillet. So I'm going to bring this up just a little bit. See how it kind of gets more rounded there? That's kind of what we're looking for. Now this really doesn't matter because I'm actually going to split this, so this fillet doesn't do me any good, to be honest. But anyway, that's kind of how you work that. So let's go ahead and now, instead of add, we're going to use a split. Split will create 2 sections here, and it's really nice effect. So let's go ahead and hit apply. So this main object here will be cut by this one and add another object within this space, and they're kind of like together. So go ahead and apply. There we go. And it will take a second. And there you go. So now we got 2 objects. So if I hide one, you'll see that now we have like a nice cut into this object. And if I take this back off, we could actually unhide or hide this, and you see that this is the inner. So it's this one and this one. And you notice that it also is flat there. It cuts right where the unit is connected. Now on this specific one, I would also go back and make sure you select this one here. And we're going to also smooth all. So again, at 10. This will help kind of break it up from each other in a sense. See how that made it really nice there? And I might do one more. Let's do smooth all. And again, I like to start off with the kind of a smooth angle at the beginning of this. And I don't like to go back too much later on because it just causes the detail to get lost. Okay, so there we go. So let's go to the side view here, real simple. Let's go front view. And now we're going to go in and start creating some, details here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to where we actually have the Vox hide. This is a great tool to use. It is just really awesome what you can do with it. So we're going to select this here. And I'm now within these two objects. I want to make sure that it's this object here, which is the outside first. And this is the second one, which is fine. We got Vox hide on, and I want to change this to like a rectangle. So I'm going to select this. I want this to be somewhat higher, just so I can kind of make sure I get a nice cut into this upper area for the decal to show. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this down. And one thing I want to do before I do this, I want to make sure that I have my symmetry on. So enable symmetry, and I want this to be on the X. Now, if this is going this way, you want it on the Y. So let's just change that, or it could be on the Z. It's a little different on this one. So see how it's going downward now? If I go with the Y, it goes down the center. So we want Y. And we can go back to the front. And now anything I do on this side will be actually emulated on this side. So let's go ahead and use the tool here now. And we're going to go up about here. We're going to cut across. Now one thing I could also do is when I'm creating this, see how it's like really sharp on these ends? I don't want that right now. I want it to be more rounded. So you can come over here now and use the actual roundness. This is really awesome that they added this to it. So we could actually add a edge roundness and just bring this up a little bit. And now when you bring this in, it actually has more roundness to it. And again, if you want more than that, you can just go back and just bring it up a little bit more. And that really makes it a lot more rounded, see? So let's go ahead and go with that. I kind of want to make it nice and round on the cut itself. So now I bring that in and we cut it. Now, you notice that the other object was not cut, and that's not a problem. I kind of want that to stay the way it is because, again, I want two different objects here kind of working together. All right, so let's continue with this by adding in some more cuts. So we're going to actually now go over here, keep the Vox hide still intact. We're going to go to the rectangle tool here, and we're going to actually make sure that we have this still on the y-axis as symmetry, and that we actually have this main one selected. Okay, we're going to make sure that we're on the first one, and we're going to go ahead and start cutting this actually out. So pull it out, say about right about here. Again, we got symmetry on the Y, and we cut that out. Cool. Now we can go to this one and basically put this on right here. And this will help us make sure that we have a nice form here. So we can just get ourselves right near the edge here to help us out with that actual edge, and bring it out to about here. Let go, just like that. Now we've done both sides, and that works out great. So let's go back here now, and we'll take this one off. I'm going to create some cuts here. So I'm going to take this now and just go with the line tool, and we're going to go more kind of like this. And I'm also going to bring the spacebar down and just kind of get that dialed in. Again, make sure symmetry is on again, and we're going to cut right about there. Now we can go back here, and we could take this one off and keep this one on. And the same thing, same process. Let's go ahead and create a line. So we're going to go with the arrow kind of to help us, get that right direction. Again, spacebar, bring it down. And we can go all the way over here and connect. So now it actually has got all those forms that we wanted. Alt key, see what we're doing. That is looking really nice. So let's go back to the top view. And we can go back to primitives down here. There we go. So now let's go ahead and zoom out a little bit, use the Alt key, and see what we're doing here. I want to shrink this down a little bit. I also want to make sure that the actual bottom layer is inward, just to give it a nice form. And the radius is a little bit smaller. And I'm good with that. Let's bring this up a little bit here. Something like about there. I'm going to make it just a little bit bigger. Right about there. All right, cool. So now we got apply, subtract. So let's go and do that on this form. So focus on that first. It's going to take a second. Okay, there we go. Now, I kind of don't like the way it's kind of too far down personally. So I'm going to zoom in and look, see if it's still there. No, okay, it's gone. So I'm just going to bring it down just a little bit. Let's go back to the front view, see how far it's in. I just think that was too far. So a good time is just well, a good way to get understanding is just kind of bring it in. Make sure you're on the front view, and we can use the actual middle roller and kind of just, maneuver this a little bit more upward. And there we go. So now that we've got this, we can go back, use the Alt key, and we could just subtract this. So hit apply. Okay, that's looking a lot better. All right, so let's continue. I want to make sure that this time I actually have a smaller one. So again, we're going to make sure we're actually on primitives. And we can scale it just a little bit with the right mouse button. We're going to move this up to the actual top view to see what we're doing. And we can scale this and bring it closer. Now let's go ahead and get the radius here and bring it down quite a bit. Kind of like this. Again, this time I'm going to make sure I got the X and Y set up here, because I want this to kind of drive basically a perfect, 4-section thing here. Again, this is going to be a little different than the last one I did, just so it has some different versions of this. And here we go. So let's bring this down. And I still think it's a little too big, but that's okay. We'll go back to that in a second. We're going to get this red one now and bring it inward. Right where it turns yellow. And bring this inward. And we can bring it down. And back in again. Right here. Again, we're going to scale this. So radius, bring it down. So that's a good dimension right there. I think it'd be better if this was over just a smidgen. And that way that all three of these kind of have a nice, see how that kind of red line is a little bit closer? You kind of see how this all works, right? This circular thing is kind of closer to that than this, and this one is a little different. So we can kind of just maneuver this a little bit differently. We use this to bring it down. And bring this one in. Hard to see sometimes. Right about there. And that's looking really good. It's pretty close. And we can bring this up now and bring it down. Kind of like that. Now I'm going to make sure that the bottom radius, and I'm actually going to first bring this downward because I want that radius to be really nice. So the bottom radius has to go in a little bit, like that, and back in. Just want to make sure that we cut this properly. So go ahead and hit apply. Okay, cool. We did that. Now we're going to actually get this torus here, and we're going to shrink this out about here. And again, shrink it more. And this one is way too big, so I'm going to actually basically really bring it down quite a bit. I'm actually going to bring the whole thing down. So again, profile radius, we're going to bring this inward like that. Inner radius also like that. Outer radius, we're going to bring it inward. And it's getting really, really skinny. I'm going to bring this in a little bit more. Kind of like this. Again, it's a little bit of just working with it, so do something like that. And we can actually now bring this this outer one a little bit smaller, or this hole. So we can now go in here and kind of rotate this. And again, we can move this in and down. You could also scale this down a little bit more by actually creating or shrinking down the size. So let's go with like 1, tab, 1, hit OK, and then 1, hit OK. There we go. So now we've done that, we can actually move this into place. And this is going to look really nice. I'm going to make sure that this is separate from the other one. So I'm going to actually cut into this again. So we're going to apply. So apply, and there we go. And now we got the same ones. We're going to actually create a whole new one here. So create a new layer. And again, it's 32. This is good. Might even go with one more. Let's just see how this looks. We're going to now hit apply for add. And we're going to go apply. So now we got these nice looking units here. Okay, a few things we can also do is we can go back to the top. Okay, we're going to go back to Vox hide. So we can add a little bit more detail to this. So right here. And we're going to now use this again, and we got the actual symmetry on. We can go something like this, and that kind of went a little too deep, so we can go back in here on the front view, hit the control key, and we can just kind of bring this back up just like that. All right, so we're going to make sure we get to the right one here. I'm going to hide all this stuff. Going back to the front. And again, control key. There we go. And what we could do is go to this side now, right side, and just change it a little bit more. Let's go ahead and zoom out a little bit. Vox side. Select this. And we're going to kind of just bring this out a little bit less than the one time before. Again, we got to make sure we have this on the control key. There we go. Okay, so we've got now a little bit different object than I created prior, and I think it's looking really nice. I'm going to start working this. So a couple things that I like to do here, first of all, is really just start cleaning this up. I want to make sure that it comes out really nice when I do the actual conversion here, which would be basically I would be doing a autopo. So before I do that, let's clean this up. So if you go back now to the spacebar, we can see what we're looking at here on the way of this one. That's fine. Hit OK. Go to the next one. Spacebar. Resample. Yeah, see, this is definitely can be a little bit higher. We could do like maybe 120,000. Hit OK. There we go. Just give it a little bit more detail. And then this one here, again, spacebar, resample. This is fine. All right, so let's go ahead and start off with this one. And hide it. I don't want to affect these. Let's go with this one. And we're going to go to smooth. Smooth all. So let's go with the 10 again. Hit OK. This will be so much nicer with a little bit of smoothness added to it. Same with this one. Spacebar. Smooth all. 10. Here we go. Yeah, that looks a lot nicer, nice and clean. And we still got this one here. Okay, cool.
All right, so now we got the object. We're going to do some different techniques here to make it into a decal. All right, so we're going to select those two objects, not the circular ones, because I'm going to do that within Blender. But I'm going to now go to Auto Po, which is down here almost in the middle, and Auto Po. And here I'm going to select about 120,000 K. And again, I've done some experimenting with this, and it seemed like the right number for this object. You got to make sure you have forms around all your objects so everything comes out, and you don't want to have too much stuff because it becomes very just spotty. So anyway, here we go. So went with all that and hit OK, and then it converts it into the object. It's going to take a few minutes, so I'll be right back. Okay, so we got some good detail here. As you see, there's a nice curvature around all the rounded areas, and there's plenty of detail there. And we want to make sure it's not too much, but not overbearing. So keep that in mind when you create these things. So depending on how complex your object is, you might have more actual polygons you're creating or less, depending on the complexity. So it's a lot of experimentation when it comes to this stuff, and that's kind of how it goes. All right, so here we go. Okay, for the first method, we're just going to use the actual object itself to bring it in and use that to create a decal. For this option, it's a little less complicated, and I'll go into more detail on more difficult decals that are a lot more, I guess the word would be textured. And these are more used for like just doing the basic shaders. Okay, so again, we got the object where we want it now, and we have it there. We're going to select everything here, and we're going to actually go now into File and Export. So select Export, Export Object basically only, not with the textures. And we're going to call it a name that makes sense. So we'll call it Decal. And I've already did this once before, but I'm replacing it. All right, cool. So now we created the object. We're now going to Blender. I'm using 4.5 Blender. Okay, so we started up the program, and now we're going to just basically left click over here, go to File, and we're going to import. And we're going to go to OBJ. And over here, desktop, I got it over here, and I called it Decal 4. So we're going to make sure that this is on the Z. And we'll go with like 0.1. That's always seems to be a little bit bigger for some reason in 3dcoat. So we're going to keep everything the way it is. Import wavefront object. And you see it's a pretty good size. So I'm good with that. So we can actually delete this now. And here we go. Now we have our detail object. We do not have of course, the tubes, which we'll create in a minute. But we do have a really nice clean object. And there is some distortion a little bit here and there, and we can fix that real easily. So, all right, so that we got the object, we can, like I said, fix this really easily. We got the object completely selected here. I'm going to do this one time so it saves time. I'm going to go in here and actually go to the actual object selection. We're going to go here to add modifier, and I'm going to go to generate and actually to deform, and we're going to go with smooth. And here I'm going to make sure that this is selected at once. So I'm going to do them all at the same time so it's easier. And this will come out much nicer. And then I'm going to bring this up maybe around 15. This will make it nice and rounded and smooth, very clean. And you can also, like I said, we can go here to Madcap and change this so we can see what we're doing. It looks really clean here. Look at the corners, make sure they're clean. And that looks great. Okay, so that's the first step. Second step, we're going to go generate. We're going to go subdivision surface. And we're just going to go with 1. And this would even make it that much more, tightened up. And it looks really clean. Okay, cool. So now that I have this, I go down here and edit. We can select these top pieces. Make sure you go to faces. And we'll go to select linked. Here, we're going to go into mesh, separate selection. Now we got 2 different actual things, and we can go down and start adding some detail to this. All right, so we got the first part of the object in the center selection actually selected, and we're going to add in just a basic, material. And I'm going to make this metallic, so I went all the way up to 1. And I also went with roughness, brought it down a little bit. And I'm going to make this more of a kind of a light gray. And this section here, I'm going to, since it's the same default, I'm going to go ahead and just say new material. It becomes 001. And here I'm going to make this a little bit darker. So I'll bring this down, something like this. And that looks nice. So yeah, this is a real simple way to make a decal. So we got this kind of form now. We still got to make the center sections. So to do that, I'm going to go to the top view with Z. I'm going to go back to layout, Z. And I can put this on the actual render mode. I'm going to go ahead now and add an object, which will be a mesh circle. Now the circle is going to be way bigger, right? I'm going to make this a little bit more detail. So we'll go with 64. And we're going to make this a lot smaller, but I'm good with this for now. So go ahead and left click, go ahead and scale it down and just bring it down about halfway. And we'll go to the side view here, G key on the Z and bring upward. Go back to Z and we'll scale it down more. We're trying to fit it into that space here. Now we can hit the G key twice and move it into place. I suggest to really zoom in on this so we can get the right placement. So G, and we'll move it over. So it's about the same amount of lighting around the whole thing. There you go. And we got the one made. All we got to do is this one first. So we're going to now convert this. So go to Object, Convert to a Curve. Now that we've done that, we can go in here to the Curve section and go down to Geometry. And in Geometry, we're going to add Depth. So we're going to add in something like, not too big, right about there, 0.07. And we're going to bring this up to like 16. I want it to be very clean. And there we go. So it's been created. And one thing we got to make sure is we go to the side view here. We can now move it with the G key and Z and bring it down into the place. And again, this is to help light up the actual decal. So we got one created. Go into shader now, and I'm going to put new. And in new, I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of this, bring this out, and I'm going to go with the actual emission shader. And here, I'm going to make this a nice light green, something like that, and I'll bring this up. Cool. Now, one thing we can do, we can go back now to the top view. Go back to layout. You notice that this is here. Now, if I want to mirror this, I need to put the main part of the object in the center of this axis, right where the cursor is. I want to make sure that this is where the cursor is. So what I could do here is I can go to Object. I could set origin. The origin is the center of that actual disk. I'm going to put down origin to 3D cursor. So that way it's over here. Now, if you have, of course, hard ops, it's real easy to do, but I'm going to show you the other way in case you don't have it. I'm going to go to Modifiers, Add, Generate, Mirror. Now, to create, it automatically went to the other side, which is great. I'm going to go ahead and select all three of these and all three of these. You don't really need this one, but actually, you need that one, not that one. Now we got them all created. We can say, Apply. So now we have the objects created. So this is real easy to get your decal where you need it. Okay. All right, so the next step is we got to take this circle and convert it into an object. So first of all, we're going to Object. We're going to Convert to Mesh. That way it doesn't cause any problems with the Decal Machine conversion. All right, so there we go. So now we got all these ready, and let's go and start creating the decal now. So when it comes to selection, before I do the decal, it's like I'm going to basically select the emission first, then this center section, and last would be the main driver, which is the outer piece. That way it's kind of in order, and that's the first thing you need to do. And now we can convert it. Yes, we can just create the decal. So real simple, and this is going to be, of course, a Decal Machine tutorial as well. So I'm going to go into Decal Machine here. And I'm going to select Create. And this is a decal. So here I'm going to put 4 times. I really want this to stand out, so 1024. I'm also going to do 512. And another thing is big emission, because these are emissions. So we want to make balance, and I'm going to go with the highest. Again, depending on what you have, you can go lower, but I always go with the highest. And now that I got this all set up, I'm just going to hit Create Simple Decal. So I'll be right back.
All right, so we created the decal. As you can see here now, we got an image on top. We got some parallaxing issues on the sides here, which is not a big deal. We're going to make sure that we got this new decal now. I want to make sure that we add this to our library. So I got my own library here. And I'm going to create the decal 4 and add to decal library. So there we go. So once that's completed, we're now going to go in here and delete this piece here. And we can actually just take these ones here and just hide them. So we're going to hide all those got hidden. And we're also going to go back here and then just also do not want these to be rendered. There we go. And we could now, I brought the sphere in as a background object. And we could use this to help us with this, to see how it's going to look. So first of all, I'm going to also bring out this plane that I also added. And it's as simple as that. Just bring these in. We're going to select this. We're going to hit the D key here. And we're going to actually pick this brand new one that we just created. So this one. Now you see it's here. Now what we can do here is basically use the D key, project key with the Alt key, and we can bring it out and then shrink it in or have it connect back to the main object here. So now that we got these connected, I'm also going to hit the D key. And again, in here, I'm going to hit actually adjust and don't move it, D key again, and parallax. So this is what helps you kind of drive the perfect look. So I need a little bit more so that edge goes away. There we go. So that's pretty much how easy it is to create a decal. All right, so I've kind of updated my Blender scene by adding in a little bit better HDR map, which created this nice effect, kind of a grayish. I've also redid the ball to be more of a reflection, like chrome, and I changed the floor to like a light blue color. And I've kind of updated the image here. As you can see, you can really make it much nicer looking. So if you go in here now, camera, active, you can see kind of how this is going to look, but you can take this camera here now, move it with G key. You can move it actually in the Y, move it over here, just to get a nice look, and then hit render, render image. All right, so here's the actual rendering of that same decal on the ball, and it really came out really nice with the actual glow effect. And this is the first attempt of that type process. And now I'm going to show you another way to do this with adding like a decal, not like a parallax, but a regular decal onto your model. And we're going to also go back and now actually export this out back into 3dcoat and then back into Blender to do that effect. All right, here we go. All right, so we created the actual decal. Now just keep in mind that the actual decal machine will take and create all these actual images for you ahead of time, which is great because we can use that to our advantage. So we have all this stuff here, but if you go to your decal, click on it, and you say open file folder, it will actually come back with where everything was put, So the last one that we did was here. You double click it, and then here's all your decals images that was created from that actual action that we just did. So what we can do here is just copy these and copy this one and copy and put them in a separate folder. So copy and then go to a folder that makes sense for you so you don't forget. So I'll put it in my folder here, 3dcoat, and this will be test object for decal or Blender to 3dcoat. That's where we'll put it right there. So we remember. Now, I've already done this already, so as you see, I have these different images here. And again, perfectly where they're at. And we can continue.
All right, so one thing I'm going to do before I actually send it off, I'm going to actually apply all the modifiers because they will not go over if I don't do that. So again, I got these all selected here. I'm going to go ahead and select it and say apply, apply. And I'll do the same thing for the other object here. Apply and apply. Okay, so we got all those now. We can select all three. And now we could just do an export. So export, OBJ. I'm going to go with the Z up. Just the way it is, selection only. Now export wavefront object. All right, so we just started 3dcoat, and we're going to go through the process now. So we're going to go with Paint UV Map Mesh because we've all done all the work with the nice smooth object. We don't want it to go backwards, so let's go select that. And we're going to select the file where the OBJ file went. So it's over here, it's here, and it'll be this one right here. So we're going to import that, say open, and there we go. And here we're going to change this to 4096. We want a nice texture map on here. I do not want to keep UV on auto mapping, and just the way it is. And this is just going to be a nice way to do it. So I'm good with everything here. I'm going to leave everything alone, put Z up on the coordinate system. So it's the same as Blender. Hit OK. Take a second to come in. All right, so your object just came in and it's looking really nice in here. So a couple things I'm going to be doing is, first of all, I'm going to go ahead and go to the layers. I'm going to start setting this up the way it should be. So first of all, I'm going to go ahead and go to edit. And I'm going to add some things here. So definitely calculate occlusion and calculate curvature. So once those are done, I'll continue to proceed. All right, so it came back, and I'm going to go ahead and hit OK here, realizing that's separate objects for each of these, but that's okay. And then I'm going to go here again, edit, and calculate curvature. This time I'm going to use sphere, hemisphere. So it gets the whole thing nicely. All right, so that completed the action, and now I have these two files here. I'm going to go ahead and add one more layer. I'm going to leave this one alone in the layer 0. I'm just going to start adding stuff to this. So I can go in here now where this kind of like ball thing is. I'm going to go ahead and make my own textures. Now I've kind of created this one earlier. I can do something similar to that. We just go in here and say plus, and we can just add in a different, color if we want, anything we want, and hit OK. We could also add in some depth, and we could bring that down, bring the roughness down. That will make it shiny. Bring it up to metal. And another thing we could do is actually add in some edge. Another good thing to do here is actually just go with some of the textures they already have, but this is one way to create a texture, of course. So I'm going to go ahead and just use what they have. So select this. I'm going to go to metals. And in here, we got all kinds of metals. I'm just going to select this one here. It's one I downloaded from their system. And again, we could right click, we could duplicate this, and now we could go in there and do Smart Material Editor. So what I want to do here is I want to actually change this color a little bit. I want to make this more of a kind of a lighter color, kind of like that. And this one too. This kind of gives it a nice, reflective material and more of a bluish color. So that looks great. So now I could just go in here, kind of just look at the object here and kind of just shrink it out or bring it in. You see how that detail is really nice there. You get to a certain point, you see how it kind of looks right. So something like that would be good. And then we actually use the fill tool. Bring this up, doesn't really matter, but right click here, left click, I'm sorry. And this will create the actual detail. And I can say save for this one. Now, if you don't like what you have, you can always go back and change it, of course. I also have the material editor here. You can always bring that in, which is a good way to do it. So bring this down. And that will show you kind of what it will look like, right? So if you want to zoom in, use Alt key. And you see how it kind of gives you all these nice speckles. It's just a really nice way. It looks more realistic. All right, so let's go and continue. I'm going to go ahead and select this again. And this time I'm going to right click again, duplicate. And this time I'm going to also edit this one. And I'm making this more of a grayish color. So select it, bring it down a little bit more this way. So something like that. And then here as well, more of a gray color. Bring it down a little bit, just like that. Save. And now this is going to look more like this, right? So we can zoom out a little bit, see how that's going to look. Something like that. And then select it here with the fill tool. Okay, we can zoom away from it now with Alt key and see what we got. So this didn't react like it should have. So again, I can go back in here now, select this one that I did before, and we can also hide the other painted object, which is this one, this one, this one. And we could actually now use, not the fill, but let's use the brush. We could just go ahead and zoom out or zoom in and just kind of make sure it's all covered. If you're having problems with it, you can always move it over. I'm going to make sure everything's, completed. So if you want to see this a little bit better, you can always hide this 3D view. So under view here, you can always hide this if it's showing. So just take that off. And you can also take off this actual axis. So that way you can see what you're getting, kind of, That looks really nice. I love the colors. So I'm going to actually shrink this out a little bit more. And again, fill. I think that one was a little bit too close together with the textures. It's adding too much to that detail too close. Let's just do that again. So scale. Something like that. Select it. Oh, there we go. That looks nicer. Okay, so we can unhide now this one. And this one. So this one here, we could add another texture, which would be a nice bright color. So I'm just going to go in here and just do that with a basic color. I'm going to go back to default. And I'll just select this one for now. Edit it. And we're going to make this more of a nice greenish color, light green, like that. Perfect. And we can save. Now I can go in here and just fill this. This one, and this one. There we go. All right, so we got all these now. Let's go and turn this all back on. All right, cool. So what we can do now is go ahead and we can go back to the top view. This is a good way to do it. So we can bring this in, bring this kind of to the center here. I can even move this over a little bit, like over here. This I can bring out of the way. Again, just is really just trying to get this all lined up. So here, top view again. You got to do this in this view first. And then what we could do is actually just go right into the actual render mode and we can render this out. So let's go to render. And it's set up to 50 millimeter, just like actual Blender is. So you can get a perfect match in a sense. Now I want these as close as I can to the yellow here. All right, so here, Alt key, right click, zoom out just a little bit. Also use the middle mouse now to kind of bring this over, up. So again, it's a little bit too much, right click, shrink it down a little bit. Again, use the roller, push it in. Just trying to equal this out pretty much even with each other. And now I could right click and just kind of scale this up a little bit more. I don't want to go past anything. All right, so again, hit the middle mouse button, bring it up. A little bit to the right. And a little bit up. Takes a delicate hand. Just like that. There we go. All right, I'm going to change the HDRI. It's causing too many problems for me. So let's go with a little different. This is too dark. I'll go with something more like this. Yeah, I think that'll look much nicer. And now that I have more of a gray background, I could go now into render mode. So render. And everything looks a little bit better. Again, I got to make sure that this all fits in here. So I'm going to use the middle mouse button and pull it down a little bit. So it's a little too big. So I got to shrink this down with the right mouse button. Alt key. Something like that. Middle mouse button, bring it up. Right to the edges. Try and get as close as we can. Just like that. We could take light intensity down a little bit by taking the exposure down. There we go. It's not so bright. And now we can render this. And we're going to render into the bake section. Main fit image. Hit save. Yes. There we go. Cool. So that's done. All right, for this next step, I'm going to actually use Affinity Photo to bring in the image. So we've already created the image, so we're going to open it and bring it in. You could use any type of software that you need to actually convert something like Photoshop or something like that. But I'm using Affinity, so I'm just going to show the process. So I'm going to go where I have this located, of course. I'm going to make sure I select the date here. And we created an actual diffuse, which was this one. But we want the actual little bit higher quality, which is this one. So open. Great. Now this does have an actual transparency around it, which is awesome. And now I'm going to just create this to make it easier so I get the exact same fit. So I'm going to do 1080 by 1080 and then create. And the reason for that is I'm going to go back in here now, copy this. So I'm going to go ahead and select by selecting. Got everything but the main thing, right? And I'm going to do actual invert pixel selection. I'm going to copy this. And we're going to go now to this brand new one and we're going to paste. So paste. Now it's not fitting perfectly right, but we'll go ahead and move this over so it actually can get right on the edge of this, right? That's what we needed anyway to make sure it fits properly. All right, okay, we can move out a little bit and just kind of bring this back into place here. This way it fits exactly as it needs to. Okay, so this has a better fit than before, and it's exactly where we want it. So one thing we could do here is we select this part of the image, export as a PNG. We're not going to go whole document. We're going to selection only. This way, this becomes a transparency again. So this is your main actual image. So export. And we can call this main image for decal. Perfect. Hit save. So now we have that. We still need to go back into 3dcoat and take these basically emission type sections and recreate that completely all by itself. All right, so back in 3dcoat, we're going to actually go back in and actually hide these other parts of the object. And we could actually just do that actually within here. So we can go to paint objects and we could just hide them from here. So that way we don't have to recreate anything. Everything's positioned perfectly in a sense. Now that we've gotten this, we're going to actually now go ahead and render. And this time we're going to call this a little differently. We're going to put this in the same location, of course, save. And now it's rendering. And there it goes. Okay, so now we're going to go back in and now create another decal, which is different than the one we just did, of course, which is not going to have any parallax, but it will have an info decal. Again, it's still going to have other things to it, which has some forms, and I think it looks really well just as well. So you don't always have to do a parallax if you don't want to. So here's an example of this one. I'm going to create a copy of this. So Shift D, and I'm going to move this over, G key and X, and just bring this over here like that. So then I have some examples to look at. And that looks good there. So we're going to select this now. And I'm going to go first in here. And I'm going to go now with the info instead of decal. So info, load image. I'm going to go back to where I was at earlier. And bring this in. So we're going to bring in the main diffuse image. We'll go with details. Main image. That's what we want to use. And good with that image. Again, it's as simple as that. We can now bring it in and create an info decal. So select it. And it's created this decal. Now, one thing I want to do is I want to add this to my library. So my decals, add to decal library. Cool. So I can go ahead and now delete this. And again, this is just showing examples with Decal Machine. So if I select this now and hit D, I can go to my decals. And what I just did was this one. I could bring it over here. I could rotate it. Kind of like similar to what is there. G key, bring it out a little bit. Kind of like that. Now you notice the difference here is that this has a texture on it. This is just a shader. Scale this down a little bit. And it's close. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this now. So if I hit D key again, I can project with the actual Alt key, just like we did before. And it doesn't look like it has anything to it, right? It doesn't look thick. It doesn't have any volume to it. It has no emission. However, one great thing is once you do this, you can go now into your shader, bring this in, bring this up, and I have my own texture in here, which is good, but what I need to do now is bring in more details. So in here, and in color, we already have this one attached. We also need the emission one. So this one, I'm going to actually open up the one we just did. So let's go back. To the location we had this. And we're going to bring in the emission that we just did. So perfect right there. All right, so that's that. Now, in the emission itself, you just do this. So this is my emission map. I need to bring this up so it has some color to it. Something like that. I can change it around a little bit. Now, another thing I could do is, one more thing we got to do before we go too much farther is I need to go back in here now to this file. Let's go here. I'm going to hide this here. Bring this one up. And hide this one. Okay, so here I'm going to convert this now. So that I've done this, we can select it. Go to actual layer. We're actually going to go to new adjustment layer and go down to where it says normals. So we can create this into a normal map now, which is really cool. So we can do that in Photoshop too, I believe. So anyway, that's really understanding of this. Now let's go ahead and export this out now. Export. It's the same thing. Export. And we're going to call this, make sure it's a PNG. Instead of main emission, we're going to call main normal. And save it. There we go. So now we have this perfectly set up now. So now we can go in here and just bring this out. We're going to bring in an image texture, just like we did before. We're going to open that one that we just created. So let's go back to the one we just did. And this will be the one. So this will help us really drive that to look nice. So none color. And right there, that just popped to give you that thickness. And yeah, looks really nice. So we can really increase that actual emission multiplier. That'll help us drive a better look on this. So yeah, so here we go. We got two different actual decals now. They're a little different from each other. I'm going to go ahead and just give it both a side a little bit. And use the Control-Alt-0. So this way we can capture this. G key. First of all, make sure we hit the camera. G. And just bring this down a little bit. And then we can render this. So it's gone through the renderer, and again, this multiplier was a little bit high. But again, you can see we kind of get the same effect, even if it's not parallax. Now you can create this without having Decal Machine. This is basically similar to any decal. You just have to add in all these different images to it to help, drive the look. But you do not need Decal Machine to create the actual decal. That might be for another video to show, but anyway, that's kind of the gist of it, to show how these can be created. So this is an actual Decal Machine with parallax. This is just an info decal, if that makes better understanding. All right, so I brought in the other actual info decal, same one that I kind of did earlier, but a little brighter, which is nicer. And it has a little bit more, you can see it better. So just, again, same process. Make sure we select it, D key. And then we're going to select the project and hit Alt and then drop it. And there it goes. Now it's actually connected. All right, thanks for joining me. Thumbs up and subscribe. Thank you.